safe to say that the cloud revolution hasn't completed itself or run its course, and now we're looking at a further revolution with the rise of AI. So how does AI further complicate these environments?
What happens is AI is sort of this killer workload life that has cemented the need for a hybrid cloud, because when you look at operating in an AI environment and bringing value from AI, there are steps that you need to take, like training, fine tuning, and inferencing. And all of those can occur in completely different spaces. And you need to be able to understand what you're doing to reduce the risk, reduce the cost, and improve innovation. If your tool sets and your platforms don't support those decisions, then you're going to be strapped for choice.
How does the Cloud Complexity Report help rationalize this and put into place a means by which you can approach it and take it on with some confidence of success?
So the HashiCorp Cloud Complexity Report for 2025 has like 11 or 1,200 people, maybe 1,600 different people about the complexity that they're facing. And there's some really interesting data points in there. Well, in today's day and age where we know we have significant attack surfaces, significant complexity, if our teams aren't operating together and operating well together, it provides opportunity for the bad guys. So I look at that complexity report. What I'm looking for there is, what are the sharp edges? What are other companies running into? And then what is actionable?
Hello and welcome to Tech Transformed, your go-to podcast source for emerging technologies and how they're shaping the future of business. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, with more than 25 years of experience in IT analysis and enterprise IT podcasting, and I'll be your host for this episode. Stay with us now as we discuss the journey from multi-cloud chaos to strategic and unified control across disparate cloud platforms. We'll also explore insights from a new cloud complexity report and learn how to anticipate and tame the effects of agentic AI tool sprawl. We'll also unpack how unified management amid new AI automation can help IT leaders assert better control across hybrid and multi-cloud environments. In this episode, we're joined by Maria Bracho, Chief Technology Officer for the Americas at Red Hat, and Tyler Lynch, Field CTO for the HashiCorp portfolio, and they're both at IBM. Welcome to you both. Maria, let's start with you. Let's look at the big picture. What's causing the shift from cloud opportunity to cloud complexity for many organizations these days?
Well, complexity comes from many areas, and it just is complex too for organizations to live with this sprawl of tool sets, sprawl of environments, and try to manage that with the same team that's likely not growing anytime soon. So as they try to move into a cloud native operation environment, which promise several things like agility, innovation, and scale, the reality is that many were left with a ton of complexion, fragmented environments, and different tool sets that increase costs, and that's hard to wrangle back in. So that complexity slows down progress and increases risks. So that's where we are.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that the cloud revolution hasn't completed itself or run its course, and now we're looking at a further revolution with the rise of AI. So how does AI further complicate these environments? Because they're very closely tied.
Yeah. So what happens is AI is sort of this killer workload life that has cemented the need for a hybrid cloud, because when you look at operating in an AI environment and bringing value from AI, there are steps that you need to take, like training, fine tuning, and inferencing. And all of those can occur in completely different spaces. And you need to be able to understand what you're doing to reduce the risk, reduce the cost, and improve innovation. So what to do when and where becomes, just someone really, really skilled needs to be able to put together. But of course, if your tool sets and your platforms don't support those decisions, then you're going to be strapped for choice.
Tyler, anything to add further on this AI, an already complicated environment?
Yeah, I think core foundationally that word skill, when we think about skills in our teams and we're working maybe on premises today and then flexing to the cloud, the skill sets are different. The knowledge set is different. The same can be said of, I'm going from traditional workloads to now AI workloads. The skill sets are different. The folks creating the AI models and doing the pre-training and the fine-tuning of AI, those are data scientists. They don't have the same skill set as software engineers to productionize and move things into production. So where I'm actually seeing the biggest problem today, not just with cloud migrations and hybrid cloud operations, but also AI projects, is the skills gaps between these very specialized domains and trying to move something from a Jupyter notebook locally into production and productionizing it for millions of users. So that skills gap, it's not even a tools problem. It is just foundational knowledge. And we see that pervasive because operating environments are significantly more complex today than they were 5 or even 10 years ago.
You know, it's interesting. You both work closely with customers in multi-cloud and hybrid environments, and it's involved over the years breaking down of silos and getting people who didn't used to work together now. It seems like we're going through this again now that we've got AI in the mix. So how do we deal with that pain, Tyler? What's some of the first things you do in addressing this bifurcated skills environment?
So the first thing is understanding and getting everybody, including the C-level, to understand that there's likely a skills gap. Let's understand what that skills gap is and then put together an enablement plan of action to close that skills gap, or to make a conscious business decision that we're going to have team X focus on cloud and team Y focus on on-prem, but we're going to share patterns and practices across them. So things like logging, error handling, observability, authentication. These are cross-cutting concerns that can apply to any operating environment, including AI operating environments. And maybe we just set out foundational controls that will apply using different tool sets. But really, it's predicated on the understanding and agreement that there's a skills problem and a skills gap. And how do we close that? I would even argue that this extends to our mainframes. Right now, I'm paving down DevOps for mainframes, which sounds kind of orthogonal, right? Mainframes should be rigorous and always up and highly available. But we're looking at this next generation. And so it really comes down to people and skills for me. Maria, what do you think?
I think that too, processes across the organization also come into play. And one thing that we have, continued to do at Red Hat is think of all this, what the previous era, the cloud era, has taught us, and then take those learnings into this AI era. We focused on, principles for people and process management like DevOps and DevSecOps. And we know that, AI and data scientists and machine learning engineers are sort of these new devs, right? But everything has to co-mingle and co-live in the same ops environment. We're going to the same production, right? Because these AI systems and AI tools are going to inform the applications that we had in the past, and continue to build new applications as well that are going to be intelligent and provide more augmented intelligence to the data that we already have. So thinking about that in that way, how long did it take us to figure out sort of this DevSecOps environment? How long did it take us to be brave enough to embrace automation without thinking that, if I automate my job, what I'm going to do tomorrow? The same way, this needs to happen with AI. How do we adopt this new way of innovating with the same team that has been building things in the past? And then how are we brave enough to understand that there's going to be a learning, trajectory, as well as a tools and skills trajectory? And how can I do this fast, but embracing innovation and reducing and managing risk?
So clearly managing the complexity and unifying management across these environments is not something you just buy out of the box and input and turn on the switch and there you go. But there is something different about the transition with AI than the transition to cloud from traditional infrastructure. And that is that AI itself could help with the transition. The automation can use the AI tools themselves to help promulgate the use of AI. So what is Red Hat and HashiCorp doing to help automate and improve the way in which we deal with these issues?
Well, it's funny because it gets complex when you talk about AI because it's like you're going to use AI to help you adopt AI. So which one is it? What are we talking about? So I like to separate things into AI to help with productivity and then AI to actually help with business value and producing, business value from the data that you have or data that you may use. So in terms of increasing productivity, we have embedded AI into tooling that we use so that operators that are using tool sets provided by our companies can, become better operators, get a quicker understanding of how to use best practices, how to, the part that Tyler was talking about, like what are those underlying automation best practices that an entire organization can leverage. So you can have that at the tip of your fingers, even if you are just newly onboarded to a company. So that kind of things helps you with productivity, with reducing the skills gap from your team and increasing complexity and hopefully reducing risk. So that's AI infused into the platforms to help you adopt. But then there comes the other point of how do I create business value out of it? And that's a little bit more complex. So we're seeing a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error, a lot of cost sunk into this very, very expensive way of learning. But also, this is just a trajectory we need to do to be able to understand exactly what are we putting in production and how much is this really generating business versus the cost that it's taking to put out.
Tyler, does IBM have a bit of a unique position in that there's a certain neutrality, I think, that needs to happen when you've got multiple environments? So we know it's going to be multiple, right? We've had that for a long time. Back when we had different flavors of Unix, it's been the same story. But talking about going to your AI provider only or your cloud provider only doesn't seem like the best approach to managing complex, heterogeneous AI and cloud adoption. So what's the neutrality and how does IBM fit into that?
Yeah, so IBM takes the stance that we don't believe that there's going to be one foundation model to rule them all. We actually believe that we're going to end up in a heterogeneous environment where you have domain-specific models, some that are third-party, some that customers or companies will fine-tune or train themselves for specific needs. And we want to enable that. And so we really treat ourselves as Switzerland. In 2025, we announced partnerships with Anthropic, with Grok, with Mistral, and Meta. We are really doubling down. And we also brought our own small language models like Granite to market. We really believe that we need to enable our customers to adopt whatever model best fits the need. But when we take a step back, Maria talked about implementing AI as business, value, internal optimizations. At HashiCorp, we're actually thinking about how do we help our customers build and or fine tune or pre-train models to meet their needs. So we're helping customers pay down the data platform that is really the foundational pieces of enabling AI development. Whether it's large language models, small language models, forecasting models, predictive AI, like traditional AI is what I would call that. We're helping them pave that down. More importantly, we're helping them to ensure they don't have data contamination problems. I once had a customer when I was working at AWS that had a $4 million budget to go build a domain-specific model. Data scientists prepped all the data, they ran the training, and they inadvertently included student data. And they couldn't remove that from a large language model. So their budget of $4 million went to $8 million overnight. And so I learned real quick that data contamination is a problem that we're facing. And once you've issued that training job, that ship sailed. You can't untrain the model. And so right now we're helping our customers protect their risk and their financial investments by data contamination on the right data platform, running experiments, and then productionizing that. That's where HashiCorp has been focused primarily. And we have just started to release our runtime agent security guidance. So for these agents that are running, how do they secure themselves? How do they take an identity? Say Maria is interacting with her bank and she can consent for that agent to be authorized to operate on her behalf and then propagate that identity to downstream systems. So we're focusing on enabling the data platform and then the agentic and agentic runtime.
And you can think of Red Hat as just several layers down. So essentially, Red Hat is that first software layer above the hardware that ensures that you have choice and freedom of any hardware, any model, anywhere from on-prem to the clouds to the edge. So that's really where, we have, just thrown a lot of our investment, and we continue to do that with open source and open source communities, because we believe that's where the innovation is happening. And in order for this to be truly transformative for the world, we need to allow for that freedom and make sure that that layer, even though is the most expensive layer today, becomes a commoditized layer going forward. So while we can just focus on generating value at the layer that Tyler is just talking about.
Real quick, the way I see that with Red Hat is we do this in the cloud or on-prem today to best use whatever investments we have. But let's say they're working with a utility company that wants to run video evaluation as close to the video capture in the edge as possible. Maybe they're looking for smoke or signs of fire at the edge. The Red Hat platform allows them to build it here, run it generally, but distribute it to the edge in highly resource-constrained environments. And the developers and the data scientists don't need to know about that, right? The operators of platforms can move it where they need to. It's democratized the runtime environment.
That's right.
Yeah, so we talked about, we know there's going to be complexity. We know there's going to be multiple environments. We know we want to address our data hygiene early and often. We want to think about security early and often as well. And now, of course, we want the hybrid cloud to extend to the edge and make that plumbing as simple as possible. Well, that's a lot. So how does the Cloud Complexity Report help rationalize this and put into place a means by which you can approach it and take it on with some confidence of success?
So the HashiCorp Cloud Complexity Report for 2025, really, we interviewed, I think it's like 11 or 1,200 people, maybe 1,600 different people about the complexity that they're facing. And there's some really interesting data points in there. And what it is, it's cautionary tales. So as an example, about 3/4 of respondents said their platform teams and their security teams were not working well together. Well, in today's day and age, where we know we have significant attack surfaces, significant complexity, if our teams aren't operating together and operating well together, it provides opportunity for the bad guys. So I look at that complexity report. What I'm looking for there is, what are the sharp edges? What are other companies running into? And then what is actionable? So it first talked about problem statements and then actionable things that you can do today that are either very low risk or very quick, and then move into more maturity. So that's what I look at the maturity report for. It's, hey, what's cautionary tales? What do I need to watch out for? Maybe what have I not seen yet? And then what actions can I take to help curb or put controls around some of those?
Yeah, no, one thing that jumped at me is that the one finding that was around automation and how automation software is key for ensuring cloud innovation. And 56% of companies sort of agreed with that. And to me, it's funny because there's been a lot of automation initiatives in many of the organizations that I work with. And now they're looking at AI as saying, okay, we already had organized ourselves, agree that automation was necessary, maybe created internal teams that were focused on automation. And then they said, okay, how are we going to use AI to accelerate this plan? So it felt like a perfect moment for, okay, we already had our runway, ready. What can we use to boost this effort? So that to me was like sort of low hanging fruit for a lot of our customers and a perfect moment to introduce AI, because we're talking, for the most part, structured data, clean data, or at least data comes from automation. So it meets all those requirements that Tyler was talking about.
Or known processes, the workflow,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
A lot of our clients spend a lot of time on the day-to-day operations. Probably 80% of their time is managing certificates, managing users, password requests, just like operational things. And Red Hat, IBM, and HashiCorp are looking at those workflows. What is the hardest, most challenging? What has the biggest blast radius? As an example, if you've ever had a TLS certificate expire in production, your website is not taking traffic. And so we're looking at those large blast. What could we automate with AI and put in safety guardrails and everything else? That's where we're focusing today, is really taking AI to automate what is hard, what has a big blast radius, or what must be repeated on a regular basis that we don't need humans to actually do. We just need humans to review before changes are made.
This conversation doesn't strike me as a software, infrastructure, middleware, hybrid cloud discussion. It sounds like a tech services and consulting conversation. So let's just delve into that very quickly. As we said, you don't buy this out of a box. So is consulting and tech services going to be a big part of how companies tackle moving better and through the cloud and into automation and AI?
I think there's always a space for consulting and services, but really the flywheel will start running once your local IT teams are able to embrace this as part of their standard operating procedures. So yes to one, but we always need to aim for this not being a consulting thing that stays all the time. So, and it's going to be hard. It's going to depend on different enterprises. Some are geared towards always sort of leaning on into consulting to be able to resolve this IT situation, and some had already sort of outsourced that to other providers or even to the cloud to outsource that complexity. AI is now making them rethink, like, oh, wait a minute. Now, probably, just putting everything in the cloud might not be the most cost effective or risk effective or quicker innovation and opportunistic when using AI, the best way to provide value. So what do I need to do now? And in those rethinks and reshifts, of course, you're going to ask for help. And this is the logical way to go. But always thinking about how can I continue to automate and, again, use AI for productivity here so that I'm not always reliant on consulting efforts for this.
So, Tyler, migrating successfully to AI is a team sport, but across all forms of teams in AI or IT, I should say.
Yeah, it really is. And to go to the consultant question, I love to have consultants to be able to come in and establish best practices and close that skills gap, right? A lot of the folks being tasked to deliver AI projects have never delivered AI before. And we need to be intellectually honest with ourselves, executives watching this. Understand that AI is a different set of muscles to move. Not that your team can't do it, but I would argue and posit their best position for success if we bring in consultancies that have the best domain knowledge to help your team build the first thing and build it right the first time and teach them how to do it themselves, project 2, project 3, project 4. Because you're going to be working across new tools, existing tools will be integrated with, it's new skill sets. It makes a lot of sense to bring in a consultancy to help you build that muscle and start that flywheel that Maria was talking about. Once you do one successfully and you shake it out and you learn where the rough edges are, you know what's next and you can do repeatability, right? Humans are great at repeating a known process. But I think your best bet is to start with the right consultancy that has that domain experience to really build the right foundations. I am seeing some of the most insecure things I've ever seen in my professional career associated with AI. So as an example, I love AI. I love to vibe code. I have vibe coding running 24/7 in the background all the time. But I recently saw a JWT be minted, which is a secure token, be created client side in a browser context and then be used for authentication. That poses significant risk because we've now given signing authority and some other things into the browser. It's very easy to reverse engineer, and now I can build my own tokens. But the person who built that didn't realize that was a security problem because they were vibe coded. And so I think consultants would come in and see this right away, or the right tooling would find this right away and say, no, you don't want to do this. And here's why. But the person that was tasked with building this, they're not a security expert. They couldn't have been expected to know that. And this is why consultancies and the right set of tooling and automation can stop that from being problematic.
Yeah. So not only a team sport, but a cross-matrix team sport. Okay. As we close out, what would be your brief takeaway message to a CIO that sums up our conversation today? How would we address summing this up in a pithy way? You first, Maria.
Yes, well, AI is not going to solve complexity. It's really going to amplify whatever systems and processes you have. So make sure that you look after your foundation and really understand the layers that you're building in. I think it's okay to start now. I encourage folks to experiment and start. Don't let that fear stop you. Don't let fear drive anything in your life. It's just as a general rule. But at the same time, just understand that there's a due diligence that needs to be done in order to, understand your tool sets, your environment, and how best to apply this. And AI can definitely accelerate your business, but don't wait for it to. It needs a babysitter.
I would say AI is not going away. This is not a fad. It is it is the new normal, and we all have to be better educated on it. So get educated. That's the first one. And the next is I see certain executives looking for 100% accuracy with the things that the AI does. I would argue that humans are not 100% accurate. Between 1% to 3% of our day-to-day operations are typos, errors of some kind, different risks. But we have to realize machines are not going to be 100% perfect. And it's not about shooting for 100%. 80% can make a big, big difference. Keeping the human in the loop can help us assuage any risk or concerns. And so I would say, know it's coming, get educated. Machines aren't going to be perfect. Put in the right controls, but focus on the workflows. I recently worked with a company that was looking at simplifying everything, all processes. That is a wonderful place to start. How can we simplify operations while still adhering and reducing our risk as business owners? So I think AI is the frontier. Double click on it. Ask the right questions, and don't be afraid to ask the right questions.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Maria Bracho,
Thank
CTO
you.
of the Americas at Red Hat, and Tyler Lynch, Field CTO for the HashiCorp portfolio, and they're both at IBM, for joining us today. We appreciate your sharing your insights. Thank you to everyone listening. We hope you took away a lot from today's podcast discussion. For further information on what we've covered, please head over to IBM.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, we'll be back next week with another discussion in our Tech Transformed podcast series. Until then, make sure you subscribe to this podcast on all the major platforms and follow the conversation on our social channels at EM360 Tech on X and LinkedIn. For more great daily content, head on over to em360tech.com. Thanks again, and bye for now.